Fucking god damn it. I should have known better. How many times am I going to do this to myself before I realize that Team Liquid are going to do Team Liquid things when you absolutely should expect them to do Team Liquid things? You have a team with Shuhi, Nerds, Elige, and fucking Nafly, and you guys got routed, completely outplayed by 3D Max, who, don't get me wrong, are a fantastic team. I would never take anything away from them, but let's be honest, 3D Max are literally the rest of the French players who aren't good enough to be on Vitality. That's what their reputation is. Fuck! The only solace I have in making this recap is that I was exactly correct in predicting that Legacy would beat Heroic in the other semifinals of the CS Asia Championships. Let's break it down and get ready for the goddamn grand finals tomorrow. You better take a second and leave a fucking like, a fucking comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, because if I gotta suffer through this, then I can get 10k subs by the end of the year. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and thank today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by SkinsMonkey, a CS2 trading website. You put in the skins that you want to trade, you select what you want, you use my code LionHeartZ for up to $5 off, or click the top link in the description, and boom, new drip.
Nice.
You can also use my code for a 35% deposit bonus if you want to buy with real money. And they have a free section with cool giveaways. So check the top link in the description, use my code to buy 15 Dragon Lores to let them know I sent you their way, and thank you to SkinsMonkey for sponsoring this video. Now, I'm not going to sit here and downplay what 3D Max did, because they played a genuinely fantastic series. They were definitively the better team than Team Liquid in every half that was played, other than the second half of Dust 2 on the first map. That is just a straight up fact. And one thing I did not calculate into my analysis about Liquid in this matchup is just how fucked the veto was going to be. I'm going to save more specific criticisms of this veto from Team Liquid once we get to Inferno on the last map. Just keep that in the back of your mind as we talk about this. I don't think there was a position where, unless Liquid 2-0 this series, they would have an advantageous map pool into 3D Max, and that is just a problem. Anyways, Dust 2 started off with 3D Max firmly in the driver's seat. They would jump out to win 5 of the first 6 rounds, Liquid not even managing to get 7 total kills between all 5 of their players. It really only came off of the back of heroics from Shuhi that they managed to actually put some rounds on the board and keep this half salvageable. But going into that second half, 3D Max had a commanding 8-4 lead going into their stronger T side, which seemed like a guaranteed recipe for Liquid to lose this first map. But in a bizarre twist of fate, it was 3D Max who went really missing on the T side for one of the first times in this entire event, as Liquid would go on an insane run to flip the script and win this map 13-10. To give you an idea of how much Liquid took over this game, including the last 2 round wins at the end of the first half, Liquid would win 10 of the next 11 straight rounds, including 4 post-plant retakes, 2 of them on the B site. So how did they do that? Well, some very good reads from Shuhi in positioning his star players, and 2, Liquid adopting a very aggressive, disruptive CT side ethos where they were pushing to retake space in the mid-round way more aggressively than you would expect most Dust 2 CT sides to operate. Probably the most emblematic round of that is round 17, where Liquid have already gone on a 4-round winning streak to tie the game up, and now they're ready to throw a real spanner in the works for 3D Max by disrupting one of their first true full buys with Maka on the op. They're going to send Nerds and Elige on a mission straight up mid to top barrels. Nerds is going to continue pushing to suicide, but Elige is going to smartly jiggle peek the corner towards long, see that Maka's there scoping it, and fall back to fight in lower tunnels with Shuhi, where the 2 of them would combine for 3 kills while Nerds picks up one at the top of mid by himself, leaving Maka in a 1v4 of doom and despair. Probably the other most surprising part about this game for Team Liquid was just how well Shuhi played as an individual, and while that's really good, I have to point out that I wonder how good this will be long term. After the match, I was talking with Dust before I went to bed, kind of just comparing notes about the series, and Dust pointed out that Shuhi is kind of doing a lot to set himself up for good and ill, because sometimes I think he is doing a little too much instead of trying to set the star players around him. One of probably the things that Shuhi can learn from the most to become a more effective in-game leader at this point in his career is to take more notes from the Apexes and Kerrigans and start to be a little more self-sacrificing and more willing to sit back and enable players like Nerds, Elige, Ultimate, and Naf. Because while Elige putting up good numbers and top fragging is great, you want Elige to lead from the front. You want Nerds to be the player finishing off all the clutches. Shuhi playing great should be a byproduct of them already winning, not him having to play great for them to win in the first place. Anyways, Dust 2 was always going to be leaning towards Liquid in terms of the firepower difference, but the back two maps, Nuke and Inferno, well, that was more firmly 3D Max's territory, and we saw that play out as the rest of the series would be decidedly one-sided, as 3D Max would dominate both sides of play and put Liquid in a box they couldn't crawl out from. Initially, things started off in favor of Liquid. They won the first 3 rounds pretty succinctly. They looked like they were moving, the defense was still fast, frantic, playing in the face of 3D Max. They repelled them very well on the first gun round, and then 3D Max actually started winning rounds. The first T-side round win was a pretty standard play where 3D Max are going to posture for outside control, throw the outside smoke wall, try to get one player down secret, but it's not necessary, then rotate, regroup, go ramp, take the lower bomb side. Body and Elige would trade picks in the yard before 3D Max regrouped to take that ramp control. Exercise would get an opener onto Ultimate in Hell, and that would be a gateway into the bottom bomb site. Already in the 4v3, 3D Max confirmed that round with Mako holding in the ramp rune for the flank, taking a trade before he exits stage left, forcing the remaining Liquid players into a save. 3D Max would turn this into a 5-round run off the back of rounds like this, the immediate round afterwards, where it's just a stock standard A push from 3D Max, but it's all just run very efficiently. It's molly top hut, reposition the players into hut and squeaky, throw more mollies, more flashes, blow up Shuhi, blow up nerds, and the remaining Liquid players just have to save. 3D Max would continue this ass whooping throughout the rest of the first half. They'd win the pistol round on their CT side, they would win fucking 6 straight before Liquid could even put a round on the board. They close things out 13-7. If there is one thing I would like to point out, is that Liquid had a chance to break through early on in the T-half, but honestly, after watching it back, I don't think they could have avoided what cucked this round. Like, it's Liquid's first gun round. If you can win this, it changes the entire context of the second half. Liquid go for a just slow outside play, they take their space towards red box, they hold to see what 3D Max are doing. Eventually, they're going to push past Mini, use that really cool new Hell smoke that lands inside the Hell window to take space there. 3D Max are actually gathering in Hell 2 players, so Shuhi and Nerds get the first 2 picks of the round, putting 3D Max into a 3v5 situation with outside control and seemingly control of Heaven and Hell to do whatever they want with. The one thing that goes wrong is they didn't anticipate a third player, Exercise, already being in Heaven, waiting for his time to strike. Now, the first pick on Shuhi is 100% just a giveaway. Shuhi's not looking for this player because why would you expect a third there? So he gets caught off guard. The problem that goes real sideways is Nerds messing up the jump up the ladder, missing his shots, and giving Exercise time to 180 and sit his ass down. Almost Falcon-esque in Liquid's ability to throw this round away off the back of one misplay, man. It's fucking painful. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about Inferno, and let's talk about vetoes. One of the big problems for Liquid going into this matchup versus 3D Max that I hadn't really calculated for is the fact that they pretty much have 2 obligate bans. The first perma is Overpass, and they prefer to ban Train where possible. They'll play Train, but they've been bad on it. They're 1 out of their last 5 on Train. 3D Max, on the other hand, don't mind playing those maps, so they can pretty much take whatever they want off the board. So the pick ban goes like this. In the first round, Liquid bans Overpass. That makes sense. 3D Max ban Mirage. That also makes sense. Liquid pick Dust 2 first, more on that in just a second. 3D Max pick Nuke, which makes sense. They then remove Ancient, because alongside Mirage, they don't really want to play puggy, aggressive maps into Team Liquid. Now at this point, Liquid have a choice. Train or Inferno. Inferno, which is 3D Max's best map by a country mile. To give you a perspective, in the last 3 months, 3D Max have a 75% win rate over 20 goddamn maps on Inferno. Liquid, meanwhile, hover around a 50% win rate on that map, meaning that 3D Max are getting their best map as the 3rd map decider in a series. So Liquid would have to 2 out of the series, beat them on Nuke and Dust 2 so they don't get there, or beat 3D Max on home territory in the must-win match in the playoffs. Not ideal. So why not take the risk and float Train? Well, floating Train is obviously a giant risk, as Liquid are only a 25% win rate team on it, as we covered. But 3D Max are not that great on Train, in my opinion. They are hovering a 50% win rate on that map in the last 3 months. So I think, in the grand scheme of things, I would prefer to rely on Liquid's advantage in firepower and go to a map neither team is as comfortable on. Now, in fairness, I talked about this with Dust after the game, because I was curious to get his perspective on this. And Dust admittedly disagrees, and I think his reasoning is valid. Liquid suck on Train, why would you let it in? It is just my difference in approach to Counter-Strike, where I think the more chaotic route can create more opportunities than playing into 3D Max's almost guaranteed pickup in Inferno. There was, however, one other option that Dust put forward, and that was to pick Ancient first instead of Dust 2, and hope that 3D Max would choose Dust 2 as the decider over Inferno. And while I see that logic, he even admits that that's a huge gamble, because why would 3D Max opt to go with Dust 2 when Inferno is right there? There was potential that they would go to Dust 2, but I personally see it as highly unlikely. Now, I fully acknowledge that taking Train does not mean that Liquid would have won the series. In fact, if you play it out, I'm willing to bet if all else was equal, the first maps went how they did, then 3D Max would probably win Train. I just think Liquid would have had more of a chance, and in my opinion, I think that's worth some exploration. The point is, Liquid were in a corner. This veto was not going to be in their favor whatsoever, unless they took some real initiative and floated Overpass and banned Inferno, which I think we all acknowledge would have been way too big of a risk to let that happen. Anyways, I was gonna break down some Inferno rounds, but this was a shutout. I'm just gonna move on. I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm in a little bit of a bad mood, but whatever. We grind. I'm very thankful for this job, but sometimes you just gotta soldier on. Anyways, let's talk about Legacy taking on Heroic, where we had all 3 games be indiscriminate blowouts, which makes my life both easier and harder as an analyst. We start things off with Heroic firmly in the driver's seat, a 13-2 victory on Dust 2 with a 10-2 dominant start on the CT side. Legacy were just playing like you would expect from Legacy. They are going to try and force every fight they possibly can, and when they're not shooting, that means they're not winning. Pretty much every single member of Heroic had themselves a field day. X-Cloud went 19-5, LNZ went 18-5, Nylo went 13-4, Youngster went 12-8. The bizarre part, and the worrying part for the rest of the series, Hades really fell back to earth compared to his group stage performance, going only 6-9, nice, with a .73 rating. Now, obviously, wasn't needed because this victory was a stomp, but you would want Hades, who is your opera, even if he is a stand-in, to have early momentum for the rest of the series, and him starting slow means it's very likely he stays slow, which he did. Meanwhile, Legacy bounced back in a big way with a 13-6 stomp on Ancient, with Sadzin going thermonuclear. Not typically the player you expect to top frag on this squad, but he went Super Saiyan. He had 26 kills, 9 deaths, 16 op kills, and a 1.92 rating. His first half numbers on the CT side, despite Legacy losing the pistol round and the early game, still landed him with a 15 kill total going into the T side, where Legacy hit the ground running at a marathon's pace and didn't lose a single round on their way out. A 6-6 half into a 13-6 win. Heroic CT side simply couldn't keep up, with every single player other than Youngster really falling off a cliff. And unfortunately, Legacy are just one of those teams where when they catch the momentum, they're not going to let it go very easily. They continued that stomp onto Inferno, where they took another very sound 13-8 victory to close out the series. The second half, once again, was overwhelming, holding Heroic to just 2 round wins, including a pivotal, series-winning, in my opinion, second round forced by victory after losing the pistol round. Lotto and Sadzin continued to put up numbers from Ancient onto Inferno. Meanwhile, for Heroic, Hades finally put together a good game in the series, going 14 for 14 and a 1.0 rating, but Nylo, LNZ, Youngster, they fell off the tabletop. LNZ only got 4 kills and 13 deaths. The spread of firepower was simply superior from Legacy, which allowed them to dominate their way into this Grand Finals appearance, where they're going to be playing 3D Max yet again after beating them in the group stage. So we know there's going to be fireworks in this Grand Finals. We have like polar opposite styles, where you have Legacy, who are just non-stop ruthless aggression, compared to 3D Max, who run an optimized, tight, consistent system that will break you apart through committee rather than brute force. And while it may not be the Team Liquid finals that I desperately wanted, it will be an entertaining Grand Finals regardless. So we'll be there to watch it and cover it when it's done. So make sure you guys leave a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Help me take care of us by the end of the year. Thank you so much to SkidsMonkey for sponsoring this video. Check the top link in the description. Go try their website. Let them know I sent you their way. Thank you to SkidsMonkey. Thank you to my channel members. You guys know who you are. Thank you so much for supporting the channel directly. It's the best way to do it for $5 a month. You can name in the video just like this, as well as custom community Discord. Follow me on Twitter too. LionHeartZ. I'll see you guys later. Peace.